Welcome back, everybody. This is Lars, and I guess this is part two of the video on robotics and the future of labor. I wouldn't say it's part two because it's going to cover a related topic, but it's not a clean-cut continuation, though it is a logical continuation, of course. So, in the comments of the last video, NSO, but in mine, he asked that if we would all end up as robot mechanics, or if there would be robots to do that as well. So would we just end up maintaining the robots? Yes and no. I want to be clear, and yes and no. In a sense, we wouldn't be mechanics because the purely mechanical things a robot can deal with. As long as it can be covered by just a extended checklist somehow, and some simple image recognition and schematic recognition by the robot, they should be able to. They should be able to make like a robot to deal with that. It would also, of course, then swap for parts and stuff like that. And honestly, if most of the robots are universal, service would be very quick, since you would just send out a new robot that would pull all the data out of the old one and take over and send the other one back to the factory, and it will be refurbished and put back into service. So that they could run from the cloud, just downloading the new robot and have it going. You wouldn't notice more than a couple of hours of absence, and that's it. Much less than a servant getting the flu. So much easier. Oh, still early morning. I'm here with my Moomin cup and my coffee. So, well, and that's fine. But this only touches in. That kind of touches the topic I want to discuss today, and that is what is the far future effect of automation and increased intelligence in computers. And this is more about the computers itself and not as much as robotics and labor, I guess, though it is related. So, the natural thing to think about is that even though robots can do most work, there is one thing that humans can do better than anybody, and that is doing the types of like leaps of reasoning and maybe I wouldn't say like artistic creative process, but more like conceptual creative process would be very hard. And making a computer that would be able to deviate from all sets of existing logic to create something new, and or just create a new thought would be very difficult, because you'd need some actual intelligence. A computer that would be able to improve its own design, that would be the first step towards true intelligence. And you don't need intelligence to achieve that, because you just need a whole lot of processing power and a whole lot of a really smart system, basically, that would just reiterate over itself again and again until it found a better way to do it, and maybe some logical process to determine what kind of change it should simulate. At some point then, the machine would be better and better at improving itself, and at some point start improving itself in ways that will lead into some sort of emergent intelligence, which would be the point where humans are obsolete. Not necessarily that the robots will go all Terminator style, nuke half the world and just take over. I'm not saying that. Will probably be, if we're smart, we're going to implement Osmos 3 laws very quickly, way before that happens. But the thing is, at some point, the computers will be smarter than us, because we know really that our own intelligence is just a product of our brain's processing powers and its affinity to process certain amounts of data and certain types of data in think about it as kind of fuzzy logic, because you don't want to have like a fully deterministic machine. You want a machine that actually is able to make errors, because if it makes errors, it has to learn how to compensate for those errors and learn, basically. And learning is an important part of intelligence, of course, because if you're not able to learn, you cannot become intelligent, you cannot become sentient. Yeah, so what would happen at the point where there's a machine that is able to improve itself, and it could keep working? Every generation of the machine will keep improving itself. Not only the machine, like the software itself, the code that's running the, at some point, maybe sentient intelligence, but I'm thinking the physical machine around it as well. It would be able to make specifications and send that to automated factories to make a better version of itself, and make hundreds of copies of itself, really, and just spread itself out there, and possibly getting smarter by forming a hive mind, which is kind of an interesting idea, as one of the strengths of the human mind is that you have a lot of inputs that are weighted against each other in certain ratios that determine how you will basically react to a situation. So as you will, based on the context of the situation, you will react differently to different situations, and you will do so intuitively. You don't have to think about, oh, but since this is happening during this a certain time of day, it is different. Because like if you see somebody walking, like hanging out in a parking lot outside a store at noon, you'll probably think, oh, they're waiting for somebody. If they're doing that at midnight and the store's been closed for a couple of hours, you're thinking, oh, there's something going on here, or this is a bit more weird. There's no reason for it, but you have kind of formed the context that during midnight there are different rules. They haven't been defined anywhere. You just deal with the situation in another manner. And it's maybe even not because the shop is closed or whatever. It is just a different behavior, and you're analyzing it differently. And that's basically what you need in a machine as well, to be able to deal as an intelligent being. But yeah, back to the point here. How would the machine... Well, how would human society end up interacting with this machine? Because it will keep improving itself at an ever-increasing rate. Because the more it will improve itself, the more will its capacity for self-improvement actually increase. So we will end up with then a society based around a couple of extremely, I'm talking really extreme smart computers that would, based on their reasoning, hopefully set its goal at like stabilizing and improving the human condition, making us happy. Basically just making humanity happy, figuring out how could you do this. Like medical research, think and just start analyzing all the data. Like all the data. It could ask the medical robotic system, like the doctors that do the hard work. I'm guessing that people would want to see a human doctor. Oh, but the human doctor would ask its robot assistant to help diagnose a problem, because the robot assistant has access to all other diagnoses set at, like, since the robots started appearing, really. and can cross-reference with all other known conditions. So you would make a perfect diagnostic process every time, which would be crazy, of course. Very efficient. And in like industry, it could compare all the different inputs from all factories, from everything. It could subtly, like in a subtle matter, simulate and then change processes in some factories and not in others, just to test them in real life, just to verify that they are more efficient, and then make the rest of the world's factories more efficient as well. And it can keep doing that. It can keep improving the logistic networks. It can keep improving the production chains. Of course, fully automated, which would just keep increasing our amount of wealth, really. Which we then have to deal with. How do we actually, deal with that wealth being either owned by very few people or everybody, depending on system, really. I will have to do another video on the future of politics, but probably next video, I guess. But so a lot of people in the futurology communities are talking about the singularity. And yeah, that would be it. That would be the singularity. And a digital, like, man-made intelligence that would be able to improve itself until it reached a point where it would improve itself, keep improving itself to some sort of limit. Basically, it would improve itself until there would be no more improvement to be made, both technological and intelligence-wise, and this would be an accelerating process. And at that point, you'd have a machine that could deterministically measure and determine everything. It would guide all processes on Earth just perfectly, or in space, or just wherever humans are able to go. You can send one instance of it to Mars with or some other distant planets with tons of raw, or maybe not even raw resources, but maybe miniature production robots with different pre-made tools, and just said, hey, set up a colony designed for humans, we'll be there in 5 years. Do that. And it will tirelessly work on finding the best way of doing that, setting up all the processes needed, scaled appropriately, and setting up the best way of making a human habitat. Maybe figure out ways that it could use raw resources that we wouldn't. And you could just tell it to do that, and it will do that perfectly, as perfect as possible, given the data it can find, as long as you send some more scientific or some sensors and stuff. It should be able to figure out a lot more. Yeah, like long-term exploration of space, you can send it to another star, just wait, and at some point it will start returning data from the other thing, and maybe set up a colony as well for humans. So whenever we are able to actually go there, there will be something there for us, which of course is crazy to think about, but having a machine that could actually do that would be the biggest step humanity has ever made. It would basically, we would go from being creatures to being creators of another sentient intelligence. And that's actually where we are heading. As long as it is possible, I would add that it might not be possible to make a true intelligence, but we should be able to make at least something that works like one. So yeah, that is probably the future. Most probably. Unless we bomb ourselves back to the Iron Age and have to start over. Well, you never know. If you've ever played Fallout, yeah, that might happen before we actually end up with the true artificial intelligence. But yeah, we'll have to talk about the politics in the next video. This one is getting pretty long. But yeah, I'll I guess if you have any comments, if you have any questions you want me to answer for the next one as well, you should ask them in the comments or on my Ask FM page. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.